So I found this video recommended to me today and I decided to check it out, and it happened to be Saitama vs Goku debate where they explain Saitama and One Punch Man cosmology in general, and if I'm being honest, it's one of the worst explanations for the One Punch Man cosmology I've ever seen in my entire life. So let's just get into it.
So, as a refresher to Saitama's scaling and generally how his strength works, Saitama has not always been as strong as he is currently. In fact, even after breaking his limiter, he's exponentially weaker than his current self in the manga. Still, early Saitama could punch away Boros' planet surface wiping attacks, and while it was ages before he was truly challenged,
Okay, the first thing that I want to mention here is that Boris's collapsing star roaring cannon is actually not, surface wiping level. It's in fact much higher at like planet level at very consistently, as it's been stated in the manga as well as in multiple data books as well. And if you want to use the high end, you can easily get him into star level. But let's just keep going.
again, we'd see how much he had grown when he battles against Cosmic Fear Garo. It was here when Saitama's abilities were copied and he was forced to grow even stronger.
Okay, the second thing that I want to mention here is that Saitama was not forced to grow by any means. Saitama's growth rate depends upon his emotions and feelings. So if he feels extreme amount of emotions, then he will start growing exponentially. But the thing is, a lot of people tend to misinterpret how his like abilities actually like work. Like for example, Garo wasn't even actually a challenge for Saitama at all. So saying that Saitama was forced to grow to beat Garo is heavily headcanon, if, in my opinion. But let's just keep going.
We see him sneeze away Jupiter, which is a pretty blatant large planet to dwarf star level feat. More importantly, we see the energy from his clash with Garo completely annihilate a chunk of the night sky. Being reasonable, this is a multi-solar system level feat, as this attack not only destroyed a bunch of stars, but covered the space in between them. Some like to argue it's higher in galaxy level, but I find this unlikely simply because it's impossible to prove which, if any, of those points of light were galaxies, and we actually can't see galaxies from the Earth without a telescope.
Okay, the third thing that I want to mention here is that there are higher calcs for that feat, like around like galaxy to multi-galaxy with these. I don't know why people don't use it. I think that it is because versus Battle Wiki only has the multi-solar one, and a lot of people just use it for scaling Saitama. But anyway, you can still argue multi-galaxy levels of energy for that, and it's on top of the fact that in some of the panels we do see stars in the background and like galaxies in the background. So yeah, let's just continue on.
Assuming this feat is multisolar, and then looking at the graph of Saitama's strength growth, you can argue he grew strong enough to be galaxy level, but this doesn't change much in the grand scheme of things, as this would still put Saitama as below even the Buu Saga mid-tier levels of power, like Fat Buu, which
Okay, the fourth thing that I want to mention here is that a lot of people actually like misinterpret what the graph is even meant for. The graph is not to meant like meant to show like absolute power levels of Saitama, because if it did, then you wouldn't see Saitama there because his power would be at infinity, because Saitama's strength is actually infinite, which I will explain later. And the only reason why that graph like exists is to show how like intense or like fast Saitama was growing due to his like battle with Garo and like the death of Genos and stuff like that. And if we want to say that they are like expressing power levels, then this wouldn't really make sense because Saitama's normal growth of like strength is already like one shot tier above from yesterday. So I'd find no reason to be like, like what to say. Yes, the speed of which Saitama grows is actually absolutely insane. If you want to calculate it mathematically, the value that he gets is so high that I can't even represent it here mathematically, and it's really hard for me to say here. It's probably something like 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 10 times stronger than like before a few nanoseconds, which gets pretty insane. But anyway, let's just keep going.
which is where his scaling ended in my last coverage of this fight. However, since then, the story has continued, and we've been introduced to a new villain who also has a fraction of the power of God, known as Empty Void. It's from Empty Void and a description of his abilities that the One Punch Man verse has potentially been upscaled. Using a special ability, Empty Void can enter into a hyperspace and interfere from a higher dimension, essentially attacking from a higher space that makes the damage guaranteed to hit and ignore distance and size. We also know this realm supposedly has other possible worlds within it, and this is the space where God exists, who is continued to be hyped up as like the final boss of the series. While Saitama himself has not fought Empty Void, he has fought Garo, who was similarly amped by God, and Empty Void fought weaker characters than Saitama. So what does this mean? Well, it either means a lot or doesn't mean much at all, actually. Firstly, we need to figure out if this space is actually higher dimensional in a mathematical sense. And honestly, right now, I think it's a toss-up. While yes, hyperspace can mean a fourth dimensional space, and the image we are shown implies it's a fourth dimensional structure, from how we've actually seen this God realm, it doesn't really function like a 4D space. If it was truly 4D, the 3D universes would behave like 2D objects and be seen in their entirety. However,
Okay, another thing that I want to mention here right now is that just because the world doesn't look like it's like a 2D disc doesn't make it not a higher dimensional plane or like fourth dimensional or fifth dimensional plane. First of all, it's never been scientifically proven that from a fourth dimensional perspective, three-dimensional objects will look like 2D disc. And that's not also not how like fiction works. Not like every fictional work follows real world science anyway. So what he says is absolutely not true at all. And on top of the fact that if you're applying that like another definition for like hyperspace here, then you need to explain why you're applying that, like, that definition here instead of the other one. If you don't, then that's just fallacious and being dishonest in my opinion.
instead, these full-size universes look like portals that show a very small portion of the world, and literally sound from them can still be heard in this higher space.
Okay, another thing that I want to right now mention is that those bubbles are never really stated to even be like portals anyway, so I don't know where the hell he's getting all this information from. And it's on top of the fact that you can't even properly hear what they're trying to say. This is how in some theories higher dimensional planes are said to work, where dimensions are actually like folded up like bubbles using like things like M theory, string theory, Manuel's interpretation, stuff like that. But that's a whole other topic, and I'm not gonna get into it if I'm being honest.
Furthermore, people say that Empty Void is the size of the universe here, or larger, and yet the slash from his sword is even less impressive in scale than the other attacks we've seen in the series, and could be dodged by characters that weren't even the strongest heroes.
Okay, another thing that I want to right now mention is that yes, empty void wasn't the size of like the entire universe in like a normal sense, but in a higher dimensional sense he was indeed larger than them due to existing in a higher dimensional space where universes are actually like folded up like bubbles. And on top of the fact that empty void can choose what the size of the attack it needs to be, like for example in one shot we just see like it being as large as only like a mountain and stuff like that, but then another shot it's so large that it almost completely dwarfs the hero's headquarters entirely due to its sheer size. And it's on top of the fact that it's already been confirmed by Blast that it can ignore distance, size, and energy, which means he can perpetually choose what he wants to do with those slashes and where they want to land. If not, if it's just some kind of portals, they would just simply be attacking the same space. And it's on top of the fact that in some of the pictures we can literally see the galaxies and black holes inside those bubbles. So I don't know also where he's getting this information from. And another thing is they are not actually dodging any of these attacks. The attacks never really were aimed at Flashy Flash, if I'm being honest. The only reason Sonic survived that attack is because Blast saved him using one of his portals. And on top of the fact that you can't really dodge a dimensional slash because it's outside the cause and effect of the universe. And it's on top of the fact that empty void already confirms that you can't dodge dimensional slash without like the interdimensional abilities that Blast had when we see it in chapter 208.
Nowhere near universal in power. Also, this doesn't even scale Empty Void normally, as he needs a special technique to use the power in the first place.
Okay, another thing that I right now want to mention is that AP does not always equal to DC. I feel like this is common sense in power scaling at this point, but yeah, AP does not equal to DC. Is like such a like a small thing that you need to understand. Like if we use this logic, like characters like Naruto wouldn't even like scale to like planetary. If I'm being honest, like they wouldn't even get like past multi-continental. If I'm being honest, and Goku wouldn't even get past large planetary at all. Like on top of the fact that this attacks, like what to say. This attack is actually a technique. He's not wrong on that, but it doesn't also imply that it's a hacks. Hacks are some kind of unfair abilities that are used in power scaling, and it's completely and utterly is a fan-made term. While technique always doesn't refer to a hacks. Technique is simply defined as a method of doing a work. So it does not mean that it doesn't scale to him. On top of the fact that it's also one of God's abilities. So why the hell wouldn't it be scaling to his AP?
At this point in the story, Saitama is no longer just one-shotting opponents, with Garo being a clear example of that.
Okay, this is another thing that I will mention later on why like Saitama wasn't one-shotting Garo there, and the explanation for this whole like Saitama versus Cosmic Fury Garo thing at the end. But let's just keep watching.
Anyone who thinks Saitama has the narrative ability to one-shot anyone is just objectively wrong at this point. But even if he does beat Empty Void, this W wouldn't be inherently sufficient to get Saitama to low multiversal. You see, just by itself, the God Realm is a single structure. The story is making that fact pretty clear, with that structure potentially having an infinite amount of these 3D universes from branching timelines. As weird as it sounds though, having an infinite amount of universes of unknown size is not actually multiversal. To get to low multiversal, you need to destroy multiple separate 4D structures. Therefore, Empty Void could destroy every single one of those tiny universe bubbles, even though he barely damaged the one he actually attacked, and he still wouldn't be low multi. He would actually need to destroy the God Realm in and of itself, which I think pretty clearly he can't do.
Okay, another thing that I want to mention here is that I don't know where he pulled out like that realm, God's realm being like 4D, because it's clearly not. It's easily a fifth dimensional realm, to be honest. Because again, that realm is already stated to be above the cause and effect of the universe, and cause and effect is already present where time is like present. So to say that that dimension is only like a 4D is complete BS. And on top of the fact that like you know those universes you don't even like I don't think you need to even destroy those universes to even consider low multi or whatever he says. You just need to affect them significantly to the point where it can cause damage or significantly manipulate them. So yeah, let's just keep going.
Tama defeating him with one punch also wouldn't change anything. A one-shot does not mean an infinite difference, something literally shown within One Punch Man's story. At best, this hypothetical W against Empty Void with his gratuitous interpretations of Dimension Slash would get Saitama to Universe Plus level, a potential big upgrade to his scaling, but not enough of an upgrade to beat Goku. Hello everyone, this is a post-editing log here, so literally as I was editing this video, chapter 209 of the One Punch Man manga came out, and surprise surprise, Saitama was able to stop the Dimension Slash with his bare hands with kind of low difficulty. Kind of obvious, as I was predicting here. Again, everything I said is still true. It's now just not hypothetically he can be Empty Void. Obviously, he can be Empty Void. Everything I say is still valid. But yeah, so please don't comment me saying I didn't know what I was talking about. Okay, that's all. So, that explains why Saitama can't beat Goku right now, but why did I say I think it's likely he'll never beat Goku? For Saitama to hypothetically reach low multi now, he would likely be in a battle against God. It would need to be revealed that God not only created the higher fourth dimension where he resides, but has created multiple distinct versions of these spaces which he or Saitama could just as easily destroy with a single attack. But even then, this would be the bare minimum level of power to enter that low multiversal tier. For reference, this would simply get Saitama to around base Goku's level at the end of Battle of Gods after absorbing the power of Super Saiyan God. Saitama would then have to quantifiably get as strong as Goku has gotten throughout the entirety of Dragon Ball Super, and that would be able to just match Goku and turn the fight into an equal stats argument. I hope I don't have to explain why Goku, who is an infinitely better fighter with infinitely more abilities, would win in an equal stats fight against Saitama.
Okay, first of all, I want to mention a few things here. That portal thing wasn't supported at all. I don't know what he's even talking about here, because just because like it looks like it's a portal doesn't mean it's actually a portal. And on top of the fact that if Goku was in equal stats to Saitama, Saitama would just simply outgrow him easily. And on top of the fact that Saitama already fought beings like Cosmic Figaro, who would easily, um, what to say, uh, knows martial arts like beyond like mastery level at this point, and Saitama was simply overpowering him, or he was just like too strong. Say one or the other.
who literally has no real powers besides being fast and strong. Besides this though, there really aren't any other good scales or arguments to get Saitama over Goku. The same terrible ones that have been used essentially since Saitama's conception. Being a comedy or gag character doesn't matter in his scaling, and Goku honestly has better gag feats than Saitama, and due to being stronger than Beerus with Master Ultra Instinct,
Okay, Saitama is actually a yeah character. It is confirmed millions of times by the author again and again. I don't know why people tend to bring that up. That like Saitama isn't a gag when One Punch Man literally is a gag show. You can go check it out in the wiki if you want. And on top of the fact that like you know Goku beating like being above like characters like Beerus who is apparently immune to gag, however. But let's just keep watching.
he can just cancel out the gag abilities of gag characters who are actually way more comedy based than Saitama, like Raleigh.
Okay, another thing that I want to mention here, Kid Goku isn't actually a gag character. Just because you're able to break like the fourth wall doesn't mean that you're actually a gag character. A ton of characters do that in fiction already. So like recently, Gohan actually like said in a chapter end of like in the next episode of Dragon Ball, in the Dragon Ball Z or something like that. And what? So you're now gonna consider that Gohan is also a gag character now? And on top of the fact that Beerus was never really shown to be able to one shot Arali like anyway. Like it's never been stated. The only statement that we have of Beerus being above like gag characters is like when by Goku, who doesn't even know what a gag character is. So saying that Beerus beats gag characters is complete and utter BS.
I've seen people point to stat charts that say Saitama has infinite power, but again, infinite 3D power wouldn't be enough to beat Goku anyway, so that doesn't work either.
Okay, another thing that I want to mention here right now, I don't know who like invented this like infinite 3D or infinite 4D or infinite 5D like power, but I don't know why people talk like it's some kind of like factual, like 100% undebunkable, type of system where like you need to be infinitely above a realm to be considered another higher dimensional plane when it's not. First of all, energy and like power is not a dimensional or a like a vector quantity. It's actually a scalar quantity. So energy would just straight up rip through all dimensions no matter what. A fourth dimensional being isn't like infinitely superior to a three-dimensional being. It's never been scientifically proven to be that case. So please, everyone, stop acting like this is some kind of like factual information where like a 4D being is always like infinitely powerful than a 3D being when it's not true or like objective in any way, shape, or form.
Still, Saitama does have a path that I've outlined today where he could potentially become a real rival to Goku in power, no doubt, but a lot of power scaling things have to go perfectly for him to make that happen, and I'm honestly cynical about that happening because of just how insane the power growth over Dragon Ball Super is. But either way, Goku vs. Saitama still isn't close, but it's definitely closer than it's ever been. Stay tuned for part 3 when Saitama gets outerversal scaling. The god realm in and of itself, which I think pretty clearly he can't do.
Okay, another thing that I want to mention here right now is that, like, the realm that Empty Void is in currently right now is a higher dimensional fifth dimensional plane, not a fourth dimensional plane, because parallel worlds are like timelines that are branching out infinitely. So they're not like some three-dimensional object branching out; they are fourth-dimensional objects, including temporal ones, where God is controlling them all. It's on top of the fact that they're different universes based on multiverse theories. We should already get into like low complex multiversal please multiversal plus. So I don't know what he's even trying to say here. Like man, like this video is just bad, like really bad. Like I know I like said this a lot of times in this video, but people like tend to like downplay One Punch Man a lot, especially its cosmology ever since like this empty void thing came along. I don't know why people do this, but like yeah, it's like done a lot of times to be honest with you, and like I don't understand why like people purposely like misinterpret or like twist the words in such a way that it doesn't even make sense or like isn't like contextually supported like anyway. So yeah, this is the thing that I want to say in this like today's video. If I'm being honest, thank you for watching, I guess, and yeah, let's meet on another day.